I've been really lucky and honoured to be able to induct many of our alumni over the past years, and Troy is joining a list of very impressive industry names who have all contributed significantly to the advancement of our industry. Troy is perhaps best known for founding Have I Been Pwned, a website which enables non-tech users to know if they've been compromised. Even my mum knows and uses this website, which is how I judge whether something is truly famous in this industry. Troy is recognised for his contribution to the advancement of information security good practice as an industry advocate, through his research and public speaking and his outreach work. He's often in the press talking about security, especially in Info Security magazine, and he's testified before US Congress on the impact of data breaches. Troy is also a pluralsight author of many top-rated courses on web security and other technology, and has more than 30 courses published to date. He speaks at events all around the world and runs developer-focused security workshops. And on top of all of that, he's lucky enough to live on the Gold Coast in Australia. So Troy, I'm very honoured to now formally induct you into the Info Security Group Hall of Fame and give you the stage to deliver your lecture. So if you come up and we've got a little something for you.
That's super cool. Thank you very much for that. Jeez, where do I begin now? Let's just do a talk, because at least that's something I'm pretty familiar with, and it's well and truly back into my comfort zone as opposed to awards. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the things we're seeing with data breaches, and obviously a lot of this is related to Have I Been Pwned. We're going to sort of drill into that in a moment. But I want to kind of make it fun and interesting, show you things like some of the threat actors, the people that are breaking into our things, and some of the problems I think we've got and things we need to address, and a little bit of fun stuff around IoT as well, because IoT has gotten really weird. So I thought we'll start with the Have I Been Pwned bit, and out of curiosity, who has used Have I Been Pwned before? Oh man, okay. Let's make it easy. Who hasn't? Excellent. All right, you've got to get your act together. Give it a go. So Have I Been Pwned is a data breach aggregation service. As of today, there's 7.8 billion something records in this system from data breaches like LinkedIn, Dropbox, things that many of us have been in. I've been in Have I Been Pwned 16 times. And in all seriousness, sometimes I only learn that I've been pwned when I get an email from Have I Been Pwned. It happened the other day. It's the weirdest thing. I started this back in 2013, and my thoughts then was, this will be a fun project. You know, I'll take predominantly the Adobe data breach, which is 150 plus million records, combined with a few other things. A few of my mates will use it. You know, they might learn some stuff. And as soon as I stood it up, people were a little bit suspicious. They're like, how do I know you're not just harvesting all their email addresses and sending spam? And you know, I get that. It's kind of an odd-sounding name. It was an odd idea. But it started there. It started with something very, very small. And it kind of ended up, as Eleanor said, here in Congress, which for me was really strange in multiple ways. So when they asked me, they said, oh, do you want to come and testify? I was like, you know, I'm Australian, don't you? You really want Australian? And they said, yeah, you know, come and do that. And it was also strange because I had to get dressed up, which is really, really unusual for me. Like, this is dressed up. I literally live on a beach, so I had to put clothes, shoes on things. And I had to buy every piece of clothing you see me wearing it, because I didn't have it. And I wanted to kind of make it a little bit fun, so I tweeted out and said, would anyone like to send me some cool socks? And maybe I'd wear something a bit different. And I got these socks from Sophos. And you can't quite see them, so I'll zoom in. It says, for those about to code, we salute you. I thought, oh, that will make it a little bit more interesting, bring a bit of character to it. And somehow that, like, the socks got really big, and I learned the other day you can actually buy a stock photo of my socks, $199 from Shutterstock. And it's just the weirdest moment, because I was like, on that previous slide, I stood this thing up as a little fun project, and now suddenly, like, I'm in Congress with people taking photos of my socks and selling it on the internet. So, getting back to the actual data breach side of things, the things I've learned along the way. One of the things I find really interesting is the perception of who the attackers are that are taking our data and spreading it around the web versus the reality. And a really good example of this is the TalkTalk situation. So everyone, particularly here in the UK, knows about TalkTalk. Massive data breach in October 2015. And TalkTalk says it cost them £77 million, which is a lot for any data breach. And I remember seeing when it first happened, and there's always speculation, right? Data breach happened, speculation, who is responsible for this? And there was a quote from a detective who said, "We think it's Russian Islamic cyber jihadists." It's a true quote, you can Google it. And the thing that struck me at the time is it's like you're basically just picking scary words and combining them all together. And I hope I didn't upset anyone by saying all these words are scary, but obviously they're just trying to string together something that makes impact. Now, as it turns out, the only part of this which was actually accurate was the cyber bit, and even that I'm not so sure about. And it turned out to be this guy. So this guy was arrested for the TalkTalk data breach. He's leading court here. You can't see his face because he's a child, a 17-year-old child. And it always makes me kind of wonder, like, how does a 17-year-old child do £77 million worth of damage to a massive multinational? Now, they took it very seriously. He was punished. They took his iPhone away. Which, in fairness, for a 17-year-old, this is probably like hell, right? When I saw it, I was like, this is like a very polite British punishment, isn't it? You've done £77 million of damage, you're going to take your phone. The thing is, though, kids and the damage that they do via data breaches is massive, and there's a huge amount of communication between literally children about how to break into websites and do this sort of damage. And I wanted to sort of pick something to illustrate this. So I went to YouTube and grabbed a video, and this video talks about how to mount a SQL injection attack. I'm going to show you a couple of clips from this. Here's the first bit.
Let's do a professional video. Let's actually show you how the concept works. And I'm using the SQL or SQL method here, SQL injection.
You don't know what SQL is? Because I heard it and I thought about this, right? And I thought, I don't know if it's a squirrel or a chipmunk, but regardless, it's got nothing to do with SQL. So the first thing here is, obviously it sounds like maybe his voice is just kind of breaking, so you can pick the demographic and the age. He can't pronounce SQL, yet he's about to mount a SQL injection attack. So he goes and finds a website he wants to break into. So he uses a Google dork, so just a carefully crafted Google search to find very particular results, finds this website. His criteria for which website he was going to hack was, what's the first website in the Google search results? It was this one. It's a gold bullion trading website. So he goes to this website, have a look at what he does next.
Okay, so with this extension, what we do is put a little apostrophe here, no comma-ish. Put it there, press enter, and there we go. So this means that we have an error in the database. So there's an error in their database. And their database is MySQL server. There you go. So because it's MySQL or MySQL, we can target it and grab all the info.
Where did it begin? Alright, so what's he done? He's put an apostrophe after the number, so inevitably there's a statement somewhere, it's just concatenating what's in the query string, it's expecting an integer, he's put in a non-integer, exception raised. This is like a really basic proof there's going to be an injection risk on this app. So he takes this URL and he goes and plugs it into a free tool called Havage. Havage is free SQL injection software. It's a nice little GUI interface. A lot of kids, like the one who did TalkTalk, use software like SQL Maps. Command line, not as impactful for demos. So he takes this, he pulls all the data out, he now has email addresses and passwords, stored in plain text in the database as well, thank you very much. Takes those, he goes and logs into the website and pulls people's banking data. Now first of all, don't do this. Second of all, don't record it and put it on YouTube. Like, this is not a good career move. It's still there today, it's still live. But have a think about the circumstances which led to what this kid did. So, obviously he's a child, he's maybe not quite mature enough to realise the problems this creates. He doesn't quite have the moral compass yet to know that this is a bad thing, a very highly illegal thing as well. But it's also a tutorial. So there's other people coming along watching the tutorial, learning how to do exactly what he did. And a lot of them are kids who haven't yet developed that sense of what's right and wrong. And there's one of the problems we've got. We've got so many children that have access to this information that anyone can use without knowing the problems it's going to cause, that we've got to do more to sort of set kids back on the right path. It's very, very easy for them to deviate a little bit and head down the wrong path and end up in a lot more trouble. So one of the things we're seeing a bit of is the likes of the NCA trying to impress more, not just on kids, the rights and wrongs of being online, but also on their parents. Because how many parents do you think understand what that kid's doing when they're up there in their bedroom playing the sequel map or have it? They've got no idea. The NCA's got this little video they're doing as part of their Cyber Choices program. And I thought this is interesting to look at, because imagine what it's like for most parents out there. They're going to be like the parents in here.
Ollie's such a clever boy.
Such a clever boy. Custard cream.
Spends all night on his
computer.
Listen, how smart is this? You know them shooter games? The other day he was losing, so he crashed the server. Proper whiz kid.
It's amazing what kids can do these days. Night, Ollie. Or what does it call it? DDoSing. That's it, I saw it on the telly.
He's no dosser though, our Ollie. 100% in maths. Every single exam for the last 2 years. Not to mention his GCSE coursework.
It's going to go a long way.
Down the M11 to Cambridge. Computer sciences degree.
Top career in computing. Internet billionaire by the time he's 25, the next Steve Gates. No, he's very clever with his money too. Chocolate finger.
We only give him a tenner a week. Told us he robbed a bank.
But this is the way it often is, right? Where kids are getting up to this stuff because they've got access to technology. They're sophisticated enough, and the parents got no idea. Now, very often this does come back to passwords. So we saw passwords before. The guy used Havik, he pulled the passwords out, he logged onto their accounts. And passwords feature over and over again in all sorts of security challenges we have. I thought it'd be worthwhile spending a little bit of time talking about where we've come from with passwords. This is MIT in the 60s, and this is believed to be the first ever instance of a password on a computer system. This was a compatible time-sharing system. And imagine what it was like back in the 60s, having passwords and logging onto a system like this. So first of all, you needed to have physical access to log on. You had to get into this room, which was computer. Like the whole thing is just one massive computer. So you've got to be there in the first place. Then you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to have sophisticated knowledge. And I suspect if most of us went into this room, we wouldn't know where to start. I mean, is it like punch cards or tapes or discs? Don't know. Sophistication. Then in terms of the passwords you create, you can be a little bit liberal. There's no password reuse because it's the first system with a password. You can use your dog's name because there's no Facebook, you haven't shared that on there. But the way passwords works in the 60s is, in essence, exactly the same as they work today. So you've got two strings in your head, you've got a username and a password, and if they match the two strings in the system, we're in. It's simple. That's the way we designed it in the 60s, that's the way most systems work today, without any other defence other than matching the two strings. Now, we could get away with that to a degree in the 60s, but as we fast forward and we get through to the 80s, we start getting to connected systems. So Prestel was one of the first connected systems we had, connected systems that we could run in the home. So you go and you get your Prestel, you plug it into your TV, because you don't have computer monitors and things like this yet, and you plug it into a modem, dial up, and then authenticate to the online system. It's a little video clip here that shows how to log on to Prestel. Now have a look at this carefully, see if you can spot where the problem is.
The Prestel computer is now asking me to enter my own personal password, which I've now done.
Okay? I'll play it again, zoom in hand, see if you can see where it goes wrong. So what's his password? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now, This is humans finding the path of least resistance. It's like, oh man, I've got to have a password. How can I make this super, super easy? Problem now, though, is you end up with about 90,000 people using Prestel. And you can be remote. And you don't need to have sophisticated knowledge because it's easy to use. So now we've got a problem because people are choosing terrible passwords and they're logging onto systems with things like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, that's still limited in scope as a problem in the 80s. We'll go forward another 2 decades, go to the noughties. So imagine now we get through into 2000 and beyond, we end up with millions of websites, billions of people online, and they're all creating accounts. And they're wanting to use passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4. So we said, okay, the way we're going to fix this is we'll create password complexity rules. Now we've got some file footage here of Bob, and Bob is trying to create an account on a website, so actually create a password. And the website says, Bob, you've got to have at least one uppercase character, at least one lowercase character. You've got to have a number, you've got to have a non-alphanumeric character. It's got to be at least 8 characters long. It can't be any of the last 5 passwords you've used either. And Bob's losing his mind because now it's too hard to create passwords. And we've all been there, right? Like we've gone to a website, we've tried to create a password and it's told us all the things that are wrong with it, so we start taking shortcuts to get around it. So we take shortcuts by creating passwords like this. And this is a good password. Very little support for that position in the audience. No, think about it. Uppercase, lowercase, numbers, non-alphanumeric, also 15 characters long, which is pretty good as far as password length goes. Except you're looking at it and going, no, it's not good because my human brain is recognising a pattern here. Yet if you did this, if you tried to use this password, if you go back to work tomorrow and try to create this one at your company, it will almost certainly let you. Because we're basing strength on mathematics as opposed to human behaviour. Now if you did this, you go to work tomorrow, you change your password to this one, what's going to happen in 3 months' time? You're going to change it, right? What are you going to do in 3 months' time? You're all thinking, I'm going to put a 1 at the end. This is what everyone does. I know you do this, I'll send you passwords. So, this is the human propensity again to get around technology barriers. And we know by looking at things like data breaches, how humans meet password complexity criteria and how they deal with rotation requirements. If you try to create a password, let's imagine you try to make it all lowercase, and it says, no, you've got to have at least one uppercase as well. You capitalise the first letter. It says you have to have a number. You put a 1 at the end. It says you have to have a non-alphanumeric character. You put an exclamation, and you're nodding because you all do it. So we have worked this out as an industry. Hackers have worked it out too. And they know that what you're going to do every 90 days is you're just going to rotate. And you keep going and going. And here's a fun exercise. So take the number that's on the end of your work password right now, divide it by 4, that's how long you've been in the company. Works, doesn't it? So this is problematic because this is really predictable. This doesn't help us make passwords stronger. In fact, it makes them weaker. And we see evidence of this the whole time. I'll give you a good example of this. Last year there was that emergency warning system went off in Hawaii. Everyone's messages, for everyone's iPhones and Androids and things, they're getting all these messages going, oh, there's a bomb coming, you're going to get blown up. Everyone very understandably freaked out. They went and interviewed this bloke afterwards. So this is the guy that runs the emergency response centre. And he's talking about what went wrong. And there's a little thing here on his screen down towards the bottom of the window. And we learned something really alarming. They're still running Internet Explorer. And they've got the password post up on the screen. Because these are the shortcuts people take when they can't remember their password or they're forced into making arbitrary decisions about the strength and complexity. So stuff's changing. This is the old way. Now the new way is we're starting to get advice from industry bodies like NIST. And NIST, a couple of years ago, said what we should do is not impose composition rules for memorised secrets. Don't require uppercase, lowercase, etc. because it's going to lead to very, very predictable results. Same with the NCSC. NCSC came out and said, well, regarding that rotation thing, we should only ask users to change their passwords on indication of suspicion of compromise. If there's not evidence that the password has been compromised, don't force people to change it. because they're just going to increment the number on the end. And if you're thinking, yes, but my work doesn't allow me to increment the number on the end, then you increment the number in the middle, or you lose some other pattern which is observable. Now, in fairness as well, NCSC, etc., they're not just saying like take away security things. They're saying there's a lot of other stuff that we should be doing better. So, for example, we've got much better use of behavioural analytics now. It's like Mary normally comes in and she works in sales and she goes and accesses the sales data in the London office. One day, Mary logs in Beijing and pulls 5 gigabytes worth of marketing data. Maybe it's not Mary. We've got better access to 2FA than we've ever had before. We've got more transport layer encryption than we've ever had before. So we're working in a very, very different environment. And that means that we've got to treat passwords differently as well. So it's great to see this sort of stuff. It's very evidence-based, human-driven behaviour that's now starting to filter out into formal guidance. Continuing on the password train of thought, one of the big problems we're seeing as a result of data breaches is things like this. This was January. So in January, there was a credential stuffing list called Collection 1. And a credential stuffing list is just email address password pairs. They've come from different data breaches. Sometimes the passwords are being stored in plain text, sometimes they're being cracked from hashes. People collate them together and they make these big lists. This one had 773 million unique email addresses in there. More than 1 billion email address password pairs, because we had a lot of combinations of an email with different passwords they'd use in different services. My email address was in there, yours probably was too. You can search Have I Been Pwned, it'll tell you. So this came out in January, 773 million records. It hit a lot of the news. This one, where it says there's 273 million email addresses, but only 21 million passwords, unique passwords. So what does that tell you? A lot of password reuse going on over there. It hit very mainstream news, things like Fortune. So I always sort of have the test a little bit like Eleanor. Would my parents use this? Do my parents know about this? So my parents would read something like Fortune magazine. It's not just Wired or CNET. Here's how to find out if it was breached. Go to Have I Been Pwned? So I got absolutely smashed off the planet in January. Frankly, I've never completely recovered. So 773 million records. Now, a lot of people look at this and they go, oh, well, it's obviously on the dark web. If you walk out there, everyone will tell you how much stuff's on the dark web. That's how they sell their things. Very scary, the dark web. It's also all over Twitter. So, this is one of the things that really gets me. So much of this data is publicly facing clear web. So this account tweeted Collection 1. So the previous news headline, they're all Collection 1. I only learned after loading Collection 1 that there was also Collection 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I had about 8% of the data. So the 773 million odd records was a tiny slice of everything that was out there. Mega.nz is really popular. That's a very popular file sharing application. A lot of people distribute data breaches that way. So you're looking at one tweet with billions and billions of unique email address and password pairs in them, sent publicly. So what do people then do with that? They've got all of these email addresses and passwords that are literally credentials that people would use in different places around the web. Well, they go and mount credential stuffing attacks. And I got a little clip here, again, from a kid or a very young man explaining how to use lists like this. And he's going to talk about Spotify. Have a look at this.
Hey yo, what is going on guys with this and welcome back to a brand new video here on the channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys a checker I've made for Spotify accounts. You can check if the accounts are valid.
Okay, now, the way these work, the way these credential stuffing applications work, is inevitably he's gone and looked at what it takes to log on to Spotify. So there's going to be an HTTPS request somewhere. It's going to go to a certain path. It's going to have fields like username and password. So all he has to do is sort of fingerprint that pattern and then heavily automate it.
But before we start, I just want to say that this is for educational purposes only, and this is obviously not meant for checking cracked accounts. You guys know what I mean. This is for checking your own accounts if you guys got multiple, so you guys don't have to check one by one, and this will make it a lot easier.
So, bear with me. You have so many Spotify accounts, you can't remember which ones work or not. So you need to automate the process of checking them. But they're your accounts, just to be clear, they're your accounts.
It will also tell you guys if the account is a Spotify Premium, Spotify Family, or a Spotify Student, whatever.
You have so many, you can't even remember what kind of account they are. But they're your accounts, remember, your accounts.
But before you open this actual program up, you make sure you have combos.
So this is now sort of the pointy end of the discussion here. So combos are combinations of email addresses and passwords. So this is what a credential stuffing list looks like. Now, I don't know where these came from. I don't know what service they came from. Maybe they came from the LinkedIn data breach, for example. Maybe they came from Gawker or Dropbox or any other number of data breaches we've had, but they've been aggregated into one file, and he's now going to use these to see if any of these combinations of usernames and passwords work against Spotify.
You're going to type in combos and then threads. Let's do 4 this time, so it goes a bit faster. So as you guys can see, already we got 8 hits. As you guys can see, it keeps getting hits because these accounts are high quality, aka HQ. As you guys can see, we keep getting hits. I don't care if you guys steal these accounts. I have about 9,000 at the moment.
All hits too, amazing, isn't it? God really likes Spotify. So see how easy this automation is. And again, it's a YouTube video. And there are hundreds and hundreds of exactly this sort of thing, just like the SQL map one before, or the Habit one. All of this is out there to teach people how to break into your account. So you end up with all of these credentials floating around the web, via the likes of Twitter, and all this guidance about how to use this and then take over people's accounts. This also only works because people reuse passwords. If we had no password reuse, then none of this would work at all. And it almost sounds like, well, this should be an easy problem to fix, we just stop reusing passwords, but here we are. So passwords are a massive problem in terms of data breaches. The other big problem that we're seeing emerge lately is IoT. Has anyone got one of these? No, good. So, these are cloud pets. Now, cloud pets are connected teddy bears. Now, the value proposition of a cloud pet is you get one of these teddy bears, it's got a Bluetooth receiver in it, so you pair it with a phone. It's got a speaker, it's got a button, it's got a little light on the chest, it's also got a microphone. So it's a listening device that you put in your child's bedroom. What could go wrong? So here's what went wrong. They took all of the data, so the recorded voices and all the other metadata around as well, everything went into a MongoDB, publicly facing, with no password. People found it, they nuked the database, they left a ransom message. So here's what was left there. Your database is backed up. Probably not. Backed up, send 1 Bitcoin to this address. Now we pulled this out of the Shodan logs. If no one's used Shodan before, it's an amazing search engine for the Internet of Things and anything else connected to the Internet. Pulled this, and not only did we find this message, but we found that subsequently 2 other people came along and changed the Bitcoin address to their own. Which, well, it's kind of ingenious. It's like they didn't have to do the crime, maybe it was the proceeds. But when we connect something to the internet, this is the risk that we run. And a parent going into a store buying a teddy bear would never have thought about this. Nor should they have to, because they have an expectation that they're going to buy a toy and it's not going to leak their kids' voices all over the web. We've seen the same thing with cars. I was doing a workshop in Oslo a few years ago, and one of the exercises is we take a device, like an iPhone, and we route it through the PC so that we can look at the traffic that flows from mobile apps. And one of the guys in my workshop had one of these, it's a Nissan Leaf. It's a little EV, it has a companion app. And the value proposition of the companion app is it can do stuff like retrieve the battery status, retrieve the trip history, and control things like the heater and the air conditioner. So this is an app that controls things that actually move inside the car. Not like controls, like steering and throttle, thank God, but you can actually turn on fans and things like this. So the guy in my class was fascinated because he looked at this and he went, I wonder how my app knows to talk to my car and not to someone else's car. Like there must be some form of baritone or some sort of key that uniquely identifies me in the app. So he proxies it through the PC. Now this takes about 5 minutes to set this up. Proxy your phone through the PC, looking at the traffic. And he finds that the secret, the key that's used to control his car is printed in the windscreen of his car. There's a VIN number. So Nissan was literally using the VIN number of the car, the publicly facing thing, as a secret key. And I've obfuscated the last few digits of this because the other thing about VIN numbers is they are enumerable, so you can keep guessing numbers. So after he pulled this VIN number and he looked at the URL and everything, we found that we could just rotate through numbers and possibly identify other vehicles. And one of the hardest things about this was actually getting Nissan to fix it, which sounds crazy. But I got in touch with them privately the day after. I think I sent a tweet, something along the lines of, does anyone have a security contact with Nissan? Boy, don't people react to that quickly. So anyway, I spoke to them, I said, look, I think you've got a problem with your cars, and they acknowledged it, and we had a bit of backwards and forth for a few days. And then I think they kind of got a bit sick of me, because they stopped answering my emails. And it went on for a month before I got to the point where I discovered that other people knew about this as well. Nissan wouldn't fix it, so I went public, wrote the blog post, and then suddenly it was important to them. It's quite amazing. So we have problems in cars, also problems in places like this. Now this was a very recent one, this was only a few weeks ago. And what you're looking at here is a watch. It's a kid's GPS tracking watch. Now I had not thought much about this beforehand because I probably don't fit into this category of helicopter parent, as they call it. But the value proposition of this is that you've got a watch that you can put on your child, takes a 3G SIM card, and then you can track the child, so you can see where they are. I assume to figure out if they've been kidnapped or something like that. Now this is made by a company called TikTok Track. In fact, TikTok Track is an Aussie company, and they make the services that sit on top of what underneath is a watch called a Gator watch. And I got a message a couple of months ago from a mate of mine called Ken Munro. Some of you might have seen Ken, he works with Pen Test Partners, and he said, look, we've been looking at a bunch of these watches. Turns out like really cheap watches packaged and sold to kids are kind of terrible. Oh, no surprises there. We think this one has a vulnerability. It's being marketed by an Aussie company. Can you go and buy one and we'll test it? So I went to their website, had a look at the website, and I was interested in the security posture, but then I saw the padlock and I knew that everything would be okay. This is not how any of this works, by the way. The other thing that stood out to me really early is the paragraph here, the second paragraph says, we take the security of your data seriously. Most of the time when I see that, it's in a data breach notice, which basically says, we take the security of your data seriously. By the way, we just lost all your data. So I'm always a little bit hesitant when I see that message. So we thought these things would probably be terrible and the sort of thing that you should never put on a child. So I put one on my daughter, and this is Elle, she's 6 years old. We got one of these watches, you can clearly see here it says Gator. So made by the company called Gator, TikTok Track builds the services on top. Put it on her, sent her down to the local tennis court. She was on holidays at the time, going to tennis camp each day. Put her on there and we started having a look at the APIs behind the watch. Now we found one of these APIs would allow you to retrieve information about a family. So you make a GET request like on the first line here, and it takes a family identifier. Now because Ken's a smart bloke and he can count, Ken knows how to change that number to another number. And then you get another family. This is literally insecure direct object reference. Idle. They're all over the place, they have been forever. And it's the very, very first thing anyone would test if they actually tested the software. Funny tangential story to this as well, like after the news broke, obviously we wrote about it in public, journalists were trying to get a statement from the company, like how many of these have you sold? And they're like, this is like commercially in confidence information, we don't want to share how many we've sold. And I'm like, oh, I reckon I can figure it out. Like, if this is business sensitive information, don't make your identifiers sequentially incrementing. So this API would return a response like this. And it comes back and it has personally identifiable information. Things like my email address, my name, my last name. So keeping in mind that you can enumerate through identifiers, you can start to pull back profiles on all the people that have these watches. It's an API where you can go and retrieve a child. And the nerds amongst us are looking at this going, why are we getting a child with a post request? This is really alarming. That's not the biggest problem, trust me, but it was just one of those like weird idiosyncrasies. You can't even get the verb semantically correct. So you would get a child by posting data, and it would come back and it would give you information about the child, where you could then relocate the child. Post being the correct verb here. So you could go and relocate the child, maybe it should be a put. Anyway, semantics. So you go and relocate the child, you could set latitude and longitude exactly where you want them to be. So send Elle back to the tennis club, she's down there blissfully unaware that she's being tracked. She's just excited because she's got a watch, she thought it was pretty cool. I open up the app and I can see that she's at the tennis club near me. And me, like in my helicopter parent mode, I was like, okay, this is cool, it's fine, you know where she is. And then Ken dumps her in the ocean. Because you can hit the API to put her wherever he wants to put her. And as I thought about this more, I thought this is really weird in multiple ways. Like, number one, you can make them appear somewhere that they're not. Like, you can make them look like they're in the ocean, and obviously parents get very stressed about that. You could also make them look like they are exactly where you expect them to be whilst they're being kidnapped and taken somewhere else. And then I sort of started getting all dark, and I was like, well, if I was a kidnapper, I'd just take the watch off her. That seems like an easy solution. So this was part of the problem, the ability to find the child, the ability to relocate the child as well. Another part of the problem was, one of the features of these watches is the ability for a parent to call the child. So it has a 3G SIM card, it can act like a phone. It's got a speaker, it's got a microphone. Now the problem is that there is an API that lets you decide who the parent is, because it would be weird if random people could call your child, wouldn't it? That API has exactly the same security as all the other APIs. So we did a test. We put Elle in her bed, and then Ken hit the API to change who the parent was. Then one of his colleagues, then jealous, calls the watch. Here's what happens.
Hi, who are you?
I am Andrey from the other part of the world.
And like, I was there recording that, and I looked at it afterwards and went, this is scary. Like, this is freaky as a parent to see the fact that random people can call your kid. And notice also, it was zero interaction. She didn't have to actually touch a button on the phone or the watch. And again, like, I got kind of all dark. I was like, I wonder if this is so that if someone kidnaps the child and they like tie them up and they put them in the back of the van, you can still call them and answer them and then try to come to their rescue. It just seemed like such a weird set of circumstances. Incidentally, these are banned in Germany because they are surreptitious listening devices. Someone remote can listen into the device without any interaction from the user. Now, we did go through the whole disclosure process, got the thing taken offline before in public. They did eventually fix it, but it was a painful process. It was not a lot of fun talking to the organisation behind this. And one of the problems we're finding is that time and time again, when you communicate to companies, even big companies like Nissan, it can be really, really hard to get them to understand what the problem is and fix it. And I want to leave you with a beautiful representation of this. This is a biometric padlock. What could go wrong, right? So the value proposition is you can unlock it with your thumb instead of having to carry a key. Now, there's a guy called the Lockpicking Lawyer. There's a YouTube channel he has, really worthwhile looking into. He goes and does physical penetration tests of all these locks. And he gets this lock, and he notices there's a screw inside the lock. And the screw does exactly what you're all thinking it probably does. Like, he unscrews it, lock comes apart, it's like, okay, well, this is obviously problematic, not really fit for purpose. So he gets in touch with the company and says, look, all I did was I took my screwdriver out, I did the screw, and then the thing came undone. And they came back with the most epic response ever, which perfectly illustrates the challenges we're having in this industry. And they said, the lock is invincible to people who do not have a screwdriver. And this is where we are today. All right, thank you very much. But we do have time for questions as well.